it's gonna shake the hand, right? So I'm gonna animate that. Let's take it up here. It's gonna go 2 frames all the way down, and 2 frames. It's gonna go up again. So by default, if I play this animation, that's way too fast, and it's actually good. I can show you some settings here. So I can select these or select the ones afterwards. And as you can see, I have a setting up here. This is basically pushing all your frames forward, right? So let's say I want to push these frames 10 forward, right? So let's go on that. I'm going to push this 10 forward. Then let's say I want to push this one 5 forward. I'll move on to that, and then I'm going to push that 5 forward. So, and it doesn't only do that with just these keyframes. If you have thousands of keyframes in front of it, you can basically push your animation, all of them, forward, which is extremely useful to have. Now, if I were to, let's say, I'll start here and render, you can see the hand looks quite clear. That is not how the hand should look. The way things work is because we're dealing with 24 frames per second, we have depth of field in our work. So we need to have depth of field applied to this. So double click, and over here you should have, if they didn't change that as well, that is outline colorizing. Yes. So probably yes, motion blur. So under motion blur, you click on motion blur on, and you can adjust the settings as they are. For now, let's just leave them as default and have another one. Obviously, it's going to take longer for the software to render your file. Hopefully, it will render it for us. Yes. So now, as you can see, the motion blur has been added. It looks much more natural when you have movements in your frame. You're going to have that motion appearing for you, right? So you want to leave that on for your characters in general. You can adjust the settings of motion blur. You can maybe bring it a little bit lower if you want lower motion blur. But as I said, generally speaking, the default does a good job, but it takes more time for your computer to actually work. Another thing that we're going to be covering is the shadows. So our character needs to have a shadow. You can turn on the shadows using this section. So there are lots of settings here. What I do recommend you guys basically use is the perspective shadow on. So when you turn that on, let's turn both on and click render. I have to turn motion blur off on top. Let's turn that off. Let's go to shadows. Let's pick a color. I'm going to go with black. We're going to talk about what each one of these do. And let's see our layer. So when I click on layer, I can now choose where the base of my layer is. By default, the base of the layer is in the middle. This is extremely important because this dictates where the shadow starts on your character. It's not the layer, because we turn on perspective. You can change that by clicking on set origin and just clicking somewhere down here. So that will be the origin of that layer, and it should have the shadow applied to it right now. Yes, as you can see, the shadow is down there. In order to see it a little bit better, let me just move the whole thing to this side. And let's take a closer look at this. So, Control R. Sorry. I needed to take everything else away. Trees. And let's just take them all. Good point. Good point. Thank you. Everything. Okay. So let's grab our test, move it back in the middle, and let's focus on this a little bit more. So Control R. That's the shadow that we have right in the middle. So let's talk about the settings of the shadow. So over here you have scale and you have shear. Scale is how big the shadow will get, right? So obviously the closer you are to the noon, the smaller the size of the shadow. The later in the day, the longer the shadow is. For now, let's just take it up a little bit to 1.5. And shear is the direction with which the shadow is being emanated. Positive is to the right, negative is to the left. So let's say we want the shadow on this side. I'm going to increase this to, let's say, 1. Let's see how it looks. Now it's gone way off, but as you can see, it starts from here, goes all the way there. I want to adjust some of the settings again. Let's go to shadows one more time. Now over here, the scale and shear are fine. Maybe shear can be a little bit lower. Let's turn on shading. And we can adjust the blurring. We can adjust the color, construction, shading directions. Since you have this, most of this will be overridden. So I'm going to turn that off. Layer shadow animated, 3D shadow animated. Yes.
Is it possible to see without render?
No, because it's going to take time. Now, over here, the color of the shadow is visible. This is the opacity of the shadow. Let's take it up a notch so we see exactly what is happening behind our character. Okay, so I'm going to click on apply, Control R. Yeah. So the legs are way too thin, I think that's why it's not happening. But as you can see, we have the perspective happening. Let's bring this even lower. Let's bring the scale even lower. And again, Control R. This is a trial and error thing to find the best setting for your animation. So that's how you add shadows. And the last thing I want to cover is adding. Should I cover it? Let's just add a little bit. So I'm gonna add particles to the layer. Now particles are quite straightforward. You can create a new particle layer, and over here it gives you some settings. You click on it. What should I? Particle options. Should we go through this? No, forget about it. I'm not gonna cover it. But if you guys are interested in knowing how you can maybe create rain, how you can create smoke, those kind of things, let me know. I will give you extra videos just for that. But for now, let's just leave it as is.
Can you show us how to take something or hold it?